Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Welcome to Brilliance Business TV, conversations with leading experts in business. I am your host, Mark Stephen Pooler. I am so excited for today's show. We have two amazing guests and I am so excited to have a great conversation today. We are streaming live on mspnewsglobal.com. We're streaming on Facebook, Periscope, post-production, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. We're also on the E360 TV network under Fresh Takes, available on Apple TV, Fire TV, Android TV, Apple TV, Roku, and many more. So I am super excited for a conversation with Victor Hansen and Dwyer Hansen today. Before I get started, I just need to make an official shout out to our show sponsors, Craig Shelley Luxury Watches and Fine Jewellery at craigshelley.com. So let's get started with the show and bring in our amazing guests. Hey Mark, hey Crystal, great to have you on the Brilliance Business TV show.
Delighted to be here. We're in beautiful, sunny Scottsdale, Arizona, so it's amazing to us that we can be 12,000 miles away.
Happy to be with you today, Mark.
I am really excited to have a conversation with you. I had heard of your names many times before I was introduced to you too. So when I got the opportunity, I was so excited to take it with both hands. We're about all similar things to do with quantum physics, all of those things that people call it, but I am so passionate about all of these subjects. We've got so much to talk about, so let's get started with the show. I would like to start with Mark. Now, you are known for the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. Now, I know this book had a lot of rejection in the beginning, didn't it, Mark?
Yeah, Jack and I had 144 publishers say, hit the road, Jack. And then what you may not know, Mark, is that our agent fired us, which cost him tens of millions of dollars, unfortunately, because we've done $2 billion at retail of just the books and $1 billion in licensing. Because as a business show, I'm willing to go through those kind of numbers if you're interested.
I definitely would love to hear more about that, Mark.
Well, the point is that they rejected us. So Jack and I, we were best friends, obviously, and I had written all these little stories, put them together, and we were inspired, came up with the title, and I can talk about that. But we literally went to the ABA, American Bookselling Association, with 60,000 people. We literally had backpacks with 3-ring binders, because everybody was turning us down. Our agent had fired us. So I said, well, let's sell it ourselves. And we were there 3 days. It was at the very final day after going to every booth. I mean, we'd already been to all the big publishers like Simon & Schuster and Random House now, which I'm with. Interesting. I'm with 7 houses, but because I'm prolific. But it is amazing to me that it doesn't matter. It's so hard to break into this business. It's sort of like being a great athlete. You know, only 1 in 10 million becomes Michael Jordan or whomever your favorite jock is at the time. So we made it. A little publisher said, we'll take it. And then we said, we'll sell 1.5 million in a year and a half. And we sold 1.3 million the first year. And then, because I write all the goals, then I said, we sold 5 million the next year after that, and then 10 million and then 15 million a year. And so, and then we started selling internationally, and it just went berserk. Like we sold 374 million books in China and Crystal and I've been to China a whole lot up until 4 years ago when they went from really harshly capitalistic to now Marxist. But it's very fascinating for us.
So what I am taking, Mark, we hear so many times, never give up on your dreams, don't quit. a lot of people I know on my own journey, there may have been those little moments where I'm like, this is never going to work. I may just give it all up, but I would never give up on myself because you're giving up on your own dreams. A lot of people would have given up. That is a lot of doors to knock on. So that is a great lesson for people, that they should always focus and never give up and don't quit and don't take no for an answer as well. That's just, I can only imagine that must have been frustrating when you know you've got such a great book on your hands. Can you share a little bit about what you do now, Mark, with your clients?
What I do now with my clients?
Yes, with your clients.
Well, we own a company called HansenInstitute.com, and we're helping everyone write a book, because I even wrote another book, which I didn't plan on showing today, but you have a book in you, because I think everybody's got a story. Everyone's got a story that needs to be told. And if you want to be an authority, the middle word is author, and an author is the best business book in the world. So at HansenInstitute.com, we've got 12 videos that take you through 21 tools on how to be a master. And what we're saying is, look, it's like a three-legged stool. You've got to write a great book, but that's 10% of the process. Number two, the second leg in the book of a three-legged stool is you've got to be a master at marketing, and 90% is marketing, advertising, self-promotion, hustle, no matter what. And then number three is you've got to be willing to make a book a business, so it's got a backdrop, right? And our backdrop, I came into Dr. Canfield and I said, hey, Jack, and you've been with Jack. So I said, we really need to license. I said, I read the books by Spielberg and Lucas over the weekend. They did $800 million on ET, but they did $1.5 billion in licensing. We're going to be in licensing. And Jack said, what do you know? I said, nothing. I said, but look, when I was in graduate school, we said everything's a system, and if it's a circle, you're either outside the circle looking in, or you're inside the circle. I'm on the outside, but I understand what it's going to take. And I was the first guy ever to license book stuff. And like, I'll just do one of our licenses out of 101. We did a dog food. We did $157 million worth of chicken soup for this old dog food and get 15%. And the beauty is, I don't have to package it. I don't have to market it. I don't have to sell it. I don't have to eat it. I did test it on our dogs, but it is amazing. Everybody ought to check out the licensing business. Just like everyone has a book in them, everybody has an invention in them, everybody has a song in them, everybody has a poem in them. I can go through a whole litany of what all of us got in it. But to your great listenership all around the world, it is important to know, and Crystal will talk about this, there's more in you, 4 times more genius. But we've been, like you were in school, you and I talked before the show began, you got unplugged and felt disgruntled and beat up on your self-esteem and humma. Everybody gets beat up, because what you're really saying is universe is testing all of us. And what you got to do is recognize that you've got a divine mission, destiny, we're going to call it when we talk about our book, Ask, today. Everyone's got a destiny, a macro destiny, and then maybe some micro destinies under it that they've got to fulfill.
So what comes to mind here, and it fits lovely into the next question, which I have for Crystal. I know that there are so many levels. There's always that next level, but we have been through really testing times over the last year. People have lost jobs. People have been out of their businesses. It's really, really tough times in the world. And I know that people can tap into their human potential to overcome those obstacles, overcome those challenges, to really start painting a new picture for their new realities. But it's hard when people just say there's another level to you. And I know you, Crystal, you do a lot of work with human potential. You've helped people with relationships, career, health, wellness, but also you've helped people through stress, anxiety, and depression. So you support people to tap into that human potential. Can you share a little bit of your recipes, how you get your clients to really move forwards?
Yes, thank you, Mark. So yes, as a transformational life coach, what I teach people, the first thing that we need to remember is that while it appears that life is happening out there somewhere, and we're just sort of, ducking and dodging, things are coming at us, and we're just trying to keep the balls up in the air, that is the illusion. The reality is your life is created from the inside out. And we need to remind in every moment of stress, because what we're looking at outside of us is just a projection of everything that we're all thinking collectively. And so you have a tremendous amount of control. You completely control your life experience. The life you will experience is happening in here, in your mind and heart. And so once you recognize that, then it's important to take that time with yourself, because especially stressful times, that's when all of our monsters start to come up, what I call messy thinking, right? Because life is difficult. Let's face it. It's not a straight and narrow, easy path, right? We are here to learn, to grow, and to evolve. And that can be a wonderful thing. But while we're doing it, it feels terrible, right? When we're in it, it feels so intense. But if we take that time with ourselves to go into that quiet space, Mark and I spend an hour of quiet time every morning doing meditation and prayer and intentional asking, and we wrote the book Ask, that's our most recent book, because we want to make sure we're asking the right questions that are leading us forward in the right direction, because it's the greatest tool we have, our ability to inquire, to ask. And when we start asking a question, literally a different part of our brain lights up and becomes a better resource to us. So sitting with ourselves and asking those questions is so important. And just that quiet time, understanding that a lot of the fears you have, we go into this primitive mode, right? All of our fears start to come up, but a lot of that is residue of our past. So, it's very important when you're going through this process to come to this place where you're just present in the now with yourself and say, am I safe in this moment? Yes, I'm safe right now. There are no monsters attacking me. There's no lions that are going to eat me up, right? I have the ability and a different decision. Time with ourselves, asking ourselves these questions, understanding that messy thinking in our head is residue from the past. And so don't be afraid of it. When it comes up, look at it and say, okay, all of this fear, it's that primitive fear that's coming up. Remembering people start to have fear of loss, fear of destruction, fear of all these things. It's very primitive, but we're actually very sophisticated beings. We can imagine anything we want. So we need to get out of the primitive mind, go into that quiet space, go into our higher creative mind and start asking questions from a very calm center, and keep reminding yourself, I am creating my life from the inside out. What will I create today?
You touched on a lot of great comments there. I know in my own personal development journey, some of those fears, you don't even know that they are there. You do have to really go inwards and really deep to know that they are holding you back. Self-talk is so important as well. I visualize every day. I feel gratitude's really important. There's just so many great techniques, but it's getting the balance right and not getting overwhelmed in the beginning, taking little steps. Now, I know you do hypnotherapy as well, Crystal. Now, I've never been hypnotized by a professional, but I use audio hypnosis almost every day through meditation audios. I don't feel as great if I'm not doing that every day. What do you feel are the benefits to that?
That is one of the most powerful thinking, and to come to what I call zero point. Because of the way our human minds are set up, we're set up, we had to defend ourselves in the primitive times. And so we're set up with this, our minds can really work against us. So we either have to use our minds to work for us, or they will randomly work against us, if we're not deliberate, intentional. That's why I created, and this is not a plug for my products at all, but I do have some extremely powerful hypnotherapy sessions on Audible at Crystal Dwyer Hansen. And I promise you, if you listen to those every day, you will feel like a completely different person. You will approach your day completely different. It's probably, like you were saying, you can't go a day without it. It's the best investment you can make in yourself because, right now it's difficult to get to a hypnotherapist and, because of lockdowns and things like that. And there are cumulative benefits. If you listen to these audios, I have one for anxiety, one for living free of depression, one that's a healing meditation, because some of us just need healing both energetically and in our physical body. So if you go to Audible under my name, Crystal Dwyer Hansen, you'll see freedom from anxiety, living free of depression, the garden of new beginnings. I mean, we all need to start over. And the thing I try to do in my sessions is first we go deep into what is there, what kind of go into the background. So the sort of that backstory, the programming, the negative programming, and they're beautiful. It's like taking a mini vacation, seriously, because when you come out, you feel like you've been on a little vacation. So there's beautiful imagery, beautiful guided imagery. So you take this little vacation in your mind, you identify those things in a really beautiful, clean way. And then you're able to let go and purge those things and come out and come to what I call it the 0 point. From the 0 point, we have this beautiful, clean slate. We can literally create anything we want in this life. And that's my message to people. I just want you to know, if you're listening right now, whatever is happening around you that you feel is your life and it's controlling you, it's not. I'm really encouraging you to go through these processes. Take this time with yourself, because you can create a brand new life if you're willing to do that for yourself.
I have to agree on the power of hypnosis, self-hypnosis audios. When I have listened, I normally do it on a morning and sometimes on an evening before I sleep as well. In the day, I just feel awake, alert, I can think better, I act better. And sometimes I think, why do I feel so happy? And I'm sure it's the hypnosis programming me. They're really, really effective. So I would tell everyone to go to Audible and check out those Audibles as well. Really, really great. Now, Mark, I would like to know, because you have huge amounts of sales, great marketing, people see big success when they look at you. You must have some of your own obstacles and challenges. It can't have always been this way.
First of all, at every level you get challenged, right? And from a financial point of view, because it's a business show, the difference between 100,000 and a million is 1 0. So what I was taught by W. Clement Stone, a billionaire, once a long time ago, is that all that changes is the amount of zeros, but the problems are immensely big. So you got to learn how to solve them at a little level so you can handle it at a big level. And that's why Christ said, take care of little things well, and I'll give you empires to rule. So when we were selling 20,000 books a week at Chicken Soup, and they would not put us in New York Times, which we should have been number one, Jack said, well, that lady is a Harvard lady and she'll just go for your jugular. I said, look, I don't care what right now, we're not anywhere. We're not on the list that they buy the books for everyone, and we're selling more books. I said, we got to get on this list. And he said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to call her. So I called her, and she was gruff. She was upset. She was sophomoric, and she was a pedantic. How's that? I'll do all clean words. And she said, sir, don't you know that you are a multi-authored book? I mean, I think she thought that was a surprise to me. I don't know what she was thinking. I said, yeah. She said, we at the New York Times do not take multi-authored books. I said, you're sure? She said, I'm positive. I represent the New York Times. I said, my dear, you have the Bible. It's got 66 books. If we add maps, it's 720. She said, boy, you're in next week. So the point is, you get tested again and again. And then our publisher wouldn't do Chicken Soup with the Soul Bible. He said, the only thing you guys can't outsell is the Bible. So I said, well, let me do a Bible. And he said, nah, you're not ever going to do a Bible. So I said, look, take this little pin, sign a thing that I can take it to another publisher. I took it to another publisher, and we did the book purple so it wouldn't threaten anyone, and did a little story to get into the big story. And we sold 70,000 a week at Walmart. It just went off the Richter scale. So what I'm saying is you got to grow rich in your niche. You got to figure out how to do stuff nobody else has done. And because you're asking about marketing, I'll do one other point. You got to do bypass marketing, and you got to pick the markets that nobody else is doing. And in America, I met with the head of the Red Cross, and she was out of blood and couldn't get it. And I said, did you try the medical doctors? They see blood and guts every day. I said, no. They said they wouldn't do it. I said, well, great. I work 4 marketplaces, one of which is chiropractic, and I love these men and women, and I'll ask all of them to do it. I've never asked them for a favor, and I've helped them make a lot of money, high volume healing practices. So we got 77,000 doctors seeing 25 million patients a week. I said, ladies and doctors, what I need you to do is send out an invite to all the inactive patients that haven't been in for 6 months. Give them a free adjustment. If they give a pint of blood and they get a copy of our book at the Blood Mobile in America, it was called 800 Give Life. And we raised enough blood, Mark, in less than a month to be cryogenically frozen for 1.5 years in advance, because there's no such thing as pseudo blood. So God forbid you go to a hospital, which you've been to, if there's no blood that matches you, you're called dead. Right. And it just isn't okay with me. I mean, there's no reason. People will give if they're asked to give, but somebody has to be the gadfly. And that just took our book, Skyrocket City.
Some great points there. And I have to agree. I think you have to take lots of action. These are the bits that people don't see when they just look at a successful person. You do have to ask. So when we do come back from the commercial break, I really want to dig deep in how to ask better questions, how to have the courage to ask. So I'm really looking forward to talking more about that. But you've just mentioned some great points, that you don't say no, you carry on going. I just think it's such big numbers what you are achieving, Mark, and such big sales. And that brings me to my next point. With that, there is more responsibility, like you mentioned, and that is something sometimes you have to grow into. People may want instant success or overnight success. I know where I wanted to be 5 years ago. I've probably achieved a lot of it now, but 5 years ago I wanted it then. I wasn't that person that I needed to grow into. So there's bigger responsibilities and a lot of self-growth as you get to those higher levels. So you have made some great points there. Crystal, I would like to ask you just a few of your obstacles and your challenges that you have been through.
Yeah, I think one of the most challenging times of my life was when I was very young. I was one of those kids who found high school to be very easy and boring. And so I decided to accelerate my curriculum and graduate myself at age 16. And I married my boyfriend, who was 5 years older than me. Not a great life plan, as it turns out. 2.5 years later, I found myself in a new city, divorced, baby on my hip, no family and friends in the new city, and no idea how I was going to support myself. So I did the only thing I could think of, which was to apply for food stamps. And as I was standing there that day, getting ready to turn my food stamps over for food and diapers the first time, I had this crazy epiphany that was really life-changing for me. And what happened is suddenly this question dropped into my mind. It was, how did I get here? Followed by a second question. And honestly, when this question fell into my mind, it was like a spotlight was shining on me, like, what's your answer? The question was, are you doing everything you can to get out of this, or are you taking the easy way out? And all of a sudden, it was like my moment of truth. And I instantly knew the answer. I knew that I wasn't doing all that I could. I wasn't tapping into my resources, and I didn't even know what that was. But I knew that I wasn't doing it. It was seriously such a moment of truth for me. And it caused a pivot, a shift inside of me, to the point where when I was turning those food stamps over to the cashier, with so much conviction in my mind, I was saying, this will not be my future. And I think I might have looked a little fierce to the cashier. I obviously didn't say that out loud, but I was thinking it so intensely. So I went home to my little, apartment where I was getting eviction notices every month, where my little boy and I lived. And I started asking more questions because I knew I didn't really have the answers, but I realized I had questions. And so I started asking, who will hire me tomorrow? What can I do? What skills do I have? How can I make money tomorrow? And as I started asking the questions, suddenly I remembered hearing on the radio about these temp service agencies called Kelly Services. So I called them up, asked them how do I apply, filled out the paperwork, and they start sending me jobs to do. Some of them last 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Some of them are 4 days. But I started filling in at attorneys' offices, and I started working at convention centers doing sales and that were coming through town. And I started setting up booths at malls and things like this. And I actually started loving just all these different working with different businesses and business owners and entrepreneurs. And so I decided at that point I'd made enough money. I put myself through real estate school and became a licensed realtor. And in the meantime, someone approached me and said, you should do some modeling. So I thought, what do I have to lose? I approached the largest agency in my city and asked them if they would sign me. And fortunately, they said yes. And I ended up getting some television commercials, which went national. So fast forward a year and a half, a little more than a year and a half from that time that I was turning over those food stamps, I'm now working as a licensed realtor for the biggest home builder in my valley, in our city. I became the #1 realtor, and I'm also getting residual income from these television commercials that are playing out. And when you do a certain amount of residual income, they force you to join Screen Actors Guild, which is amazing because then I started getting these free benefits for myself and my little boys. I had the best insurance benefits available. And I can't tell you how many times, Mark, I thought back on that pivot, that shift in my life and what really happened there. Because it would have been so easy for me to just keep sliding downward. I had every excuse, every reason. I was a young mother, no one to help me, And so I could have slid into my own victimization. And I think that's what happens to all of us, can happen to us. I mean, life is hard sometimes. But I'm so thankful that question came to me. And it was a tough question. Are you doing everything you can, or are you taking the easy way out, right? And then I think it's also important to be able to have the courage to answer ourselves honestly. When we can ask ourselves those tough questions, really be courageous in your answers, because that pivoted my life, not just for that period of time, but forever. I never went backwards. I only went upwards from that point on. And that's the power of asking the right questions. Truly, truly, Mark and I teach people that the questions you ask yourself will determine the outcome of your life.
So I resonated with a lot of things there, because I come from a past of bullying, drug addiction, collapsing and dying from drug use. I could have it's much easier to carry on living that way and not doing good for yourself to become successful. It's really, really difficult when you, especially like myself, coming from nowhere, a different career, wanting to make all my dreams come true. But believing in yourself, taking those action steps, asking those questions and taking action on them. I mean, such a transformation from collecting food stamps to where you are now. And isn't it great that when you connect all the dots backwards, it's like everything does happen for a reason. We are coming to a commercial break. We have been joined with Dwyer Hansen, Victor Hansen. We have learned all about their background, their success. We have learned all about what they do and how they serve others. Join us after the commercial break when we will learn more about Ask. Welcome back to Brilliance Business TV, conversations with leading experts in business. Today, I am joined by the wonderful Mark Victor Hansen, Crystal Dwyer Hansen. Welcome back to Brilliance Business TV.
We're delighted to be with you, sir.
Thank you, Mark.
I have really enjoyed our conversation so far. Now, there's one word that has been coming up so much on this show today, and that word is ask. Now, your book, Ask the Bridge from Your Dreams to Your Destiny. I want to know the story behind the story, the why of the book.
Well, we've been so blessed to travel to 80 countries, talk to some part of 7 million people. We meet nice people, wonderful people, educated people, sophisticated people. But the difference between somebody who succeeds a little and somebody who's vastly successful is one thing and one thing only. They know how to ask, which we say, look, everyone's got a destiny. So we said their dreams is the bridge from your dreams to your destiny, because you don't get what you want always, but you always get ultimately, inevitably, what you ask for, and the questions you ask determines the path in your life towards your destiny or destinies. And what we wanted to do is say, hey, wait a second, how do we do that? So we wrote everything we knew about it. Then we checked out all the universities, Cambridge, Harvard, Stanford, all that. And then we interviewed 26 superstar askers, and congruently, every one of them had the integrity of knowing asking in 3 channels that we teach: ask yourself, ask others, and ask God.
So I would like to dig a little bit deeper into this. So can you just share a little bit more in detail of what the people out there will get if they go and get a copy of this amazing book?
Yes, absolutely. So, I want to back it up for a minute to the time when we all came to this earth as these beautiful little children. As children, we were uncorrupted in our ability to ask for everything, right? As little children, we wanted to know who, what, when, where, why, how, right? We were infinitely curious. We asked constantly. And we also were not afraid to ask for more, right? We basically weren't afraid to ask for everything. And then what happens, depending on how we were parented, what happened in our schooling experience, in our job experience, whether our opinions were valued, how many times we were shut down, told to be quiet, don't ask questions, only talk when you're called on. All of those things start to leave an imprint in our minds, right? Just basic life rejection, till suddenly, as adults, we're standing there terrified to ask for anything. Truly terrified, and also a bit ashamed that we don't already have all the answers, as if somehow we're supposed to have all the answers to everything. So instead, we hold back. We don't ask when we should be asking. Every time that curiosity, every time that wonder pops up in our hearts, in our minds, but we're shutting ourselves down. And so what Mark and I are saying, we're inviting you to take this asking journey with us. Let's bring that beautiful, uncorrupted, childlike ability to ask back into our lives, because, like Mark said, the questions you ask will determine the life you get. And we did determine that there are 3 channels through which to ask. Just like Mark said, it's asking yourself, ask others, and ask God. And each of those channels is equally important. And we can get into each of those individually. I just wanted to give you time to comment on that, Mark.
Yes, I think it's great knowing these things. I want to dig a little bit deeper. First, let's go to asking yourself, because I know as well that the heart and the brain are connected. So we should listen to our heart. We should listen to our gut. Sometimes we don't listen to our intuition, and that can get us into all kinds of trouble or mistakes or regrets. Gut instinct always turns out right. So let's talk about asking ourselves a little bit.
So what happens is, why people don't ask themselves is we discovered 7 roadblocks to asking, and all of us have some of them some of the time. Some of us have all of them. And when you look in the mirror at each one of these, you go, oh, I get it. Now I can solve it. I can absolve it. I can make it shrink down, because you and I talked about visualization earlier. So they are unworthiness, naivete, doubt, fear, pattern paralysis, excusology, and disconnection. So we can go in any one of those that you want, but that's what shuts people down and squishes them. Like Crystal said, little kids, start to say, your mother says, you ask too much. Why? And then you go to school and say, no, just sit there, Mark. You're supposed to just absorb all this stuff. You're not allowed to ask about the universe and all that. And then if they go in the military or work, just do it, we're told. Don't ask all the questions. And that's just the opposite. You and I are here to ask and evolve as human beings. And the beautiful thing about what we're saying here is that because of this COVID cocoon lockdown, for the first time in history, we're getting a gazillion letters from people saying, hey, wait a second, I read the book. I went over every question with my spouse or with my mastermind partner or my business partner or my church temple or Ron partner. And what's amazing to me is I've unfolded myself. And when I get out of here, I'm going to break out of this cocoon and be a high-flying butterfly, metaphorically speaking.
I'd like to mention as well that the book is available on Audible as well, because I've got my copy on Audible because I don't read as much as I should. So I like listening to many audiobooks. So I'll be leaving you a review very, very soon. So we have asked ourselves, we have done the inner work. Let's come to asking others, because I know on my own journey, like asking for a sale, asking for a money, I 5 years ago wouldn't be able to say, oh, my program is 3,000 or my program is 10,000. I had to grow into that level of value to others and to know my own value, which that comes with doing the self-work first. Can we go into more detail of asking others? Because I know a lot of people struggle to ask for what they want.
Absolutely. It's such an important thing. In fact, when we looked at the studies, Mark, pretty much everybody going into the studies on asking others, right, entered the study with the impression that if they ask people for help, information, a sale, advice, things, that they would either be perceived as being ignorant, stupid, uninformed, or pushy, obnoxious, annoying. So as it turns out, the results of all the studies show that the opposite is true. If you're just willing to put yourself out there and ask for what you want, whether it's information, help of some kind of sale, you're 80% more likely to have your request granted. So that's a big difference. So we literally have nothing to lose in asking for the things we want, whether it's the sale, for help, for information, for advice from somebody that might know more than we know when we're trying to grow in some way or trying to learn something. And so we need to understand that and stop holding back, stop being ashamed to not already know everything. Stop thinking that somehow you have to do that. And even some people are held back by that for, they feel like they can't go sell their product unless they already know everything, unless they're the best in the world. No, you always have something to share. We all know a little bit something different or more than other people. There's something unique and valuable that we all have to give and share. And so it's really about getting comfortable with that, understanding that, sometimes you have to realize you will have some fear, but you need to step on the fear with courage. And if I could just tell a quick story in the book, there's a woman named Lynn Marquis who right out of college, she decided to go into the nonprofit space, right? She just loved the idea of helping others. So right away, she was able to put together this camp, this children's camp for disadvantaged children. And it was going to last for a good portion of the summertime because the parents of these children can't afford a nice camp for their children to go to when they still have to work. So she was really excited about it, then needed to get funding, finally got an appointment with the richest woman in her city who controlled a large family trust. And so the day she went to meet with the woman, she was terrified. She said, I walked into her beautiful office and I was so terrified. I was literally shaking visibly. And so she said, I couldn't do anything but just own it. She said, I'm so honored to meet you. And I'm just a little nervous about being here with you. And of course the woman was kind and said, sit down, let's talk about what you have. So she explained the camp, all the benefits to the children, how wonderful it would be, and all of those things. And so the woman said, okay, so how much is it? How much are you asking for? Again, she got terrified. She said, I got so terrified I started stuttering. And she said, I'm asking for $5,000 because that's how much it costs to put a camper through the camp. And the woman looked at her for a second and she said, okay, but how many campers do you want to have at the camp? And she said, something like 285. And the woman said, okay, how much is that? Because I want to underwrite all the campers. And Lynn was so floored that this woman went so far and above her request. She goes, I couldn't even add it up in my head. She's like, do you have a calculator? I need to add it up. But the point of this story is so important. It's an important lesson to all of us. As terrified as we are to ask, we don't know what the answer is going to be. We don't know that person that we're about to ask might embrace the idea and become even a greater grantor of our wishes than we could ever have imagined. So we have nothing to lose by asking, and we have everything to gain. And that's what we're teaching in this book. There are so many wonderful stories that reinforce that truth, and we all need that reinforcement in our lives.
Yes, so you have talked about fears holding you back, but you face the fear and do it anyway. I remember when I first started public speaking, I'd never spoken on stage before. I was literally shaking, my jaw was shaking, but I just get up and do it anyway. And it's like you say, we make assumptions that what other people may say, and that fear then gets embedded into us, and that will stop us creating our reality. So I am definitely going to get asking some bigger and better questions. That brings me to my next question, asking God. What does that look like to you? And does that go for people that may not believe in God? Because I know myself, I'm very spiritual. I believe in a higher power, the universe, the quantum realm, etc., etc. What does that look like, prayer and asking God?
Okay, well, you've asked two questions at once, if you don't mind my, first of all, answering that there's got to be an infinite intelligence, an infinite love, an infinite operation and universe. And from my point of view now, in human form, I would say that God's a mainframe computer. You and I are mini frames off the mainframe, and we're Wi-Fi connected, right? So that would be that. And then the technology we're teaching in the book is that you got to ask. Most people do not ask the big question. Well, I'm an engineer, I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor, I'm a garbage man, I'm a city sweeper, I'm a janitor. Well, that's what you do, but that's not who you are in God's light. So the question you got to ask is, what is your destiny for me? And I'm saying you do it 400 times before you go to sleep. God, what's your destiny for me? God, what's your destiny for me? God, what's your destiny for me? Now, you got to know, though, that when you ask these big questions and you permeate, penetrate, fill the inner space of your mind, you're going to have the answer come, but it'll probably be in the middle of the night, very inconvenient. You got to tell your sweetiekins before you go to sleep, I'm going to wake up. I listen to Mark and Crystal. They've had vast success, so it must be true. I'm going to have to write down exactly what it says in detail. And they said, you got to turn on the light. You can't say, oh, I'll remember in the morning, because you won't. It's like a wet, slippery fish. That's that part. So let me just reduce it to practice for the book title. When Jack and I had done all the stories for Chicken Soup, and we knew we tested them and all that without names on them, so we knew that the stories were all a 10 plus. Everybody loved them. They could repeat them. They understood it. They understood what it meant. But we didn't have the right title. So in our respective homes, we did what we call a thought command. It's a psychiatric term. And we said, mega best-selling title, mega best-selling title, mega best-selling title, mega best-selling title. 2:58 in the morning. This is before cell phones, so the phone rang and woke up the whole house, and I got a lot of animals and everything. And but this is bad. Something's wrong with one of the kids or our neighbors or relatives or the place on fire or something. Anyhow, answered the phone. Jack said, chicken soup. I said, for the soul. And we both got instant goosebumps, which we teach 7 levels of corroborations: goosebumps, God bumps, chili bumps. We knew we had the title of all titles, right? Chicken soup is, what your grandma or mom gave you when you're sick to get well. And we thought the soul of America was in high hurt, but what we discovered, and you're in Europe right now, so the soul of the world is in high hurt.
I agree. I have had moments where you have a really great thought and you don't act on it, and then it's gone, and you try and remember and it doesn't come back. You should always act straight away. And I would like to say as well, you ask yourself, you ask others, and you ask God. But I also think, do you agree with me here? You do have to be very giving as well. You can't just ask and expect without being giving and serving to others.
That's exactly right. And it's part of the value circle that Mark and I live by. The universe has a perfect accounting system, truly. So you'll be very lopsided if you just keep asking and asking and asking and aren't thinking about, how can I serve? How can I give? That's the exact other half of the circle. And it doesn't have to be like, if I'm asking one particular person for something, that I need to give that person something back. Sometimes that person doesn't need me to give anything back to them, that they just want to grant that. But Mark and I, we have a section in the book called Become a Grantor of Wishes. And that's an important part of this equation. How beautiful it is for another human being to serve another, and for one human being to serve another. And it's one of the ways we get our greatest joy and satisfaction. And I think sometimes we're so centered on what we can accomplish because we feel this constant pressure to accomplish, to do. And so there's in the Ask God part of the book, the section, we say there's this question flip that we like to propose to people. And instead of asking yourself all the time, when you're making a decision or entering a new opportunity or something like that, or you're contemplating something, ask yourself, not what do I get from this, but who do I become by doing this? And if we all lived a little bit more by the who do I become as I ask for these things, as I make these decisions, as I navigate my life, who do I become is so much more important because, I truly believe that, life is eternal. We are going to go on from here. It's not all over. And this is Life University right now, right? And so there's a great opportunity as a human being to grow and evolve. We're part of this interconnected web of life, of creation, of beauty. If you look around you, the beauty just in nature, Emerson's essay on nature. I mean, you can't miss God when you look at nature, right? It's so exquisite, so magnificent. Well, you're part of that magnificent, exquisite part of nature and part of creation. And so however you want to think of God, just remember you're part of it. You're part of God. You are a piece of God. And so is everybody else. And so having that great divine respect for the other divine beings, which we all are, even when we're mad at someone, even when someone's being unkind, Jesus taught so much of that, don't judge, forgive, love those who hate you. They're still a divine being, just making maybe a bad decision or a decision that's not going to lead them to a great place. But if we stay in our own divine love and be that grantor of wishes, as well as asking for everything in this life that is already there for us because we are part of God. We are part of the universe. We are part of creation. We cannot separate. We only separate ourselves from it mentally when we're blocking it and not understanding who we fully are in this life and in this world.
I have to agree. That's why I love quantum physics so much, because it shows how everything is connected. It doesn't matter the distance apart, etc., etc. But also, when you are coming from a place of love, not only is it good for everyone else, you feel good when you're coming from a place of service and love. It feels good to be serving others as well. I think now is a really good time for people to go out and get this book, because it's been a hard year and we're going over the year mark soon. People have been isolated, lost jobs, lost their businesses, family members. What a way to really have some hope for the future, to take some positive steps forward just from reading or listening to the Audible version. I think now is a great time for people to go out and grab a copy of Ask the Bridge from Your Dreams to Your Destiny. Can you just explain what happens when they go to Amazon and they've purchased? They go to askthebookclub.com.
Again, you did two great questions, and thank you for both. First, when they get the book, we just had a woman write us a long, long letter. I'm just going to do the distillate of the letter. And what she said is, I was despondent, I was disconsolate, I was upset, I was hopeless. I started reading your book and my eyes opened up again. I felt a magical tour, sort of like the Beatles, a magical mystical mystery tour, right? I woke up to who I could become by asking all these new, great, grand, and terrific questions, and I'm growing again and glowing again. And it just, Crystal said, "Did you read that letter?" I said, "I read all the letters like you do." And that was our dream. That was our hope, because faith comes by hope, and faith is substance things hoped for, evidence things not seen, Paul said. And what you got to do is have hope, and hope runs eternal. If you're if you're asking the right questions, thinking the right thoughts, you'll start meeting the right people to get the right result the right way in the right time. So all of us are a broadcasting and receiving station, which is what you're saying, with this whole quantum physics thing, which, in graduate school, I started studying that with Bucky Fuller 50 years ago, because he was one of the great cosmologists of all time. So the point is if they join askthebookclub.com, which is free, we're going to help them expand their aura of asking, expand their abilities, because like Crystal articulately said, whatever you're asking for determines what your life journey, what your destination is going to be. We want you to have a great, positive, optimistic, enthusiastic future that is bigger than your dreams, bigger than your hopes. Like you said, you couldn't see yourself and really believe that you'd be where you are now 5 years from now. But the point is that in the short term, we all want maybe too much. In the long term, we don't want nearly enough. And that's why we're saying you got to keep asking yourself how to make this the most magnificent journey, because this isn't a dress rehearsal. Yeah, we've all been in lockdown, 8 billion of us, but we're ready to break through, and we're going to go into the most prosperous business times in history ever, I predict.
A great way to close the show. I am definitely going to be asking for more over the long term and not trying to get too much short term. Take it at a pace and really aim big and ask those right questions. Crystal, Mark, I have really, really enjoyed having you on the Brilliance Business TV show. Thank you so much for being my guest today.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.